I'm James Beauchamp. I'm GVP of Client Services at Zeta. And as we mentioned, Cynthia Janelli was with us, who's a VP on our Global Strategic Consulting team. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Slightly diminished numbers, I notice. And getting a head start really today on tackling a very familiar goal to us as marketers, and that is, of course, how to deliver personalized one-to-one experiences at scale. Over the years, I'm sure we're all very familiar with this. It sounds very easy in theory, but those of us in the business know that even with a number of advances, a wealth of advances really in technology over the years, it's still pretty hard to pull off in practice. This morning we're going to talk to you about some best practices for harnessing the power of AI and high-fidelity signals to increase our ability as marketers to deliver against customer expectations, customers' wants and customers' needs, and while fulfilling our own objectives and obligations and constraints as marketers. And by way of further introduction, as we mentioned, we're from Zeta. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Zeta, or perhaps need a refresher, we're an ESP. We're actually a relatively large ESP, and we've been around for quite a long time. Formed over a number of years through the acquisition of several large players in the ESP space. We're a data-driven technology and services company, and we combine said technology with our own data, proprietary data, advanced analytics, and artificial intelligence to help some of the largest brands in the world acquire, grow, and retain their customers. Over the past couple of years, we've been working on the latest version of our ESP product, which is one of the reasons why we've been a little bit quiet on the marketing front, which is very much modern UI, modern back-end data architecture, and very much real-time with artificial intelligence at its core. And it's connected to something that we call the Zeta Data Cloud that we'll talk a little bit about today. And it's an ecosystem of rich third-party data that you can choose to overlay onto your own first-party data sets to create quite unique targeting and personalization opportunities. Today's the third day of EIS, and throughout the week we've heard mention of countless acronyms. Today we're going to focus our conversation around four very familiar pillars that you'll all be well versed in, and we'll talk about how we can amp things up around these four things. So first being data, and how do we develop a deeper understanding of customers' behaviors and preferences given the huge volume of data that we have to deal with now as marketers, and particularly in the context of today's privacy-crazed or privacy-focused world. Decisioning. So how and when to create experiences for customers and prospects that provide value to the customer, provide value to the brand, and how do we use AI to make that happen? Delivery, so the orchestration of that dynamic content at a one-to-one level in email and across complementary channels too in an efficient and automated way. And then finally, the outcomes. And how do we get ahead of the curve in terms of proactive insights and providing feedback so that we can fail fast, course correct, and repeat success quickly. And this one's particularly interesting, I think, in the dynamic content world, where we're no longer talking about A versus B versus N. We're talking about potentially thousands or millions of experiments or permutations in marketing. I'll hand it over to now to Cynthia.
James. Permutations in the morning. Okay. So from my perspective, over the course of the last 3 days, I've heard a lot of passion about email, first-party data, and how we as marketers are taking a strategic shift to holistic KPIs. But what I haven't heard us emphasize enough yet is how us as email SMEs within our respective organizations have championed the role of deterministic data and the truth that that asset uncovers across people, processes, and platforms. So perfect timing for the focus of today's discussion of teams in tech and the fabulous speakers following us this morning. So in the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to talk about how you can in context to data, filter out the noise surrounding the massive amount of data we're collecting on our consumers every day, distill that into meaningful connections from a personalization standpoint, so that we are isolating individual intent signals associated with someone's likelihood to convert, so that you can orchestrate across your full tech stack to drive efficiencies. Efficiencies in how you're prioritizing segments, individuals, offers, so that you're using one-to-one measurement to really predict the best outcomes for the individual as you as a brand. So, in data. So, from my perspective, and to a larger extent, Zeta, given its people-based orientation and how it views data, AI, and the platform, I truly believe that first-party data and deterministic data is the strongest tool in our marketer tool set. It resolves identities across devices. It connects disparate offline and online transactions and behaviors, so you can really uncover the truth about your customers' preferences and their future propensities to convert. Second, it creates efficiencies in continuous conversations with individuals so that we move beyond the inbox, providing transparency in how we approach paid media extensions. And things like, just to dive into that, how do we exclude owned audiences from our acquisition team's activities so that we can connect those to lower cost channels from email, how we prioritize the treatment, be it from an omni-channel, multi-touch sequence, for those who are higher value, so that you are prioritizing your spend on those that will deliver better results to your bottom line, aligned to their lifetime value. And third, while James had mentioned the privacy and compliance rules that are surrounding all of our discussions as marketers, third-party data is losing some of its glamour due to the rise of these privacy concerns. And few marketers can really rely solely on first-party data alone to achieve the big marketing challenges and reach of their campaigns. So it's still a necessity, but deterministic data allows us to really be confident in our approach and how we connect with individual consumers. So that's why Zeta has a different approach in terms of how we use permission data to identify audiences, but for you guys, how we enrich audiences, how we enrich additional signals on your first-party data, and that's underpinned in a massive data cloud that we own and operate. It has scale, and what sets us apart is the data in motion. So, Epsilon was here yesterday for breakfast talking about how we can complete the profile of additional data signals on individuals. But with Zeta's data cloud, I want to point out that we have 750 million permissioned email identity-based data. And so those individuals within our data cloud are generating 2.5 billion unique users monthly. And that's a fair amount of data, web behavior, transactional data that our AI is processing and filtering to identify intent signals. And really, there are key tenets in terms of natural language processing and AI that allow us to understand on a page level, not a domain level, on a sentiment level, and even on a commenting level if someone is dissatisfied with the brand or seeking a usage occasion where your brand can resolve, provide a solution. And in a nutshell, it's that allows that AI power to really isolate the insights along to every point of the life cycle. Oftentimes within CRM, we look at just how we upsell and retain. But when we combine the assets of how our customers are looking from an acquisition all the way to retention, how we protect churn, these are a way that we can really have an experience of something more individualized, and complete the view of your customer's activity. All right, so decisioning. All right, I wanted to just bring this to life with a little bit of a case study. So a couple people in this room, Fluent and Flatiron, helped us with this campaign and driving permissioned audience for Campbell's at a very efficient manner, where we use the data cloud to drive enrichment and value of those customers over time. So as you can imagine, at less than $1 a can of soup, driving an addressable audience with enormous precision was, very important for Campbell's. The cost per lead, the overall return on ad spend, these are typical KPIs I'm sure that you're struggling with too. But to take it further, we were able to attribute lifetime value on their newsletter subscribers by, really enhancing the more transactional value of a subscriber opt-in to understand what their lifetime value is on their direct relationship with their Campbell's kitchen recipe, but also what her projected lifetime value was for the brand as a whole and how they could migrate her to other product categories. So this is just an example of, Lauren, she's a Zeta ID, she's a subscriber. We bounced her up against our data cloud. Campbell's knew that she had purchased this creamy tomato soup for her lunch at her desk, but we knew because of her intent signals online and because of her commentary about healthy options for her children in terms of what to put in their lunchbox, we know that she might be an intender for an in-store pickup. So this is a URL example of her browsing on CNN.com, where she's looking at a URL title of curbside pickup and Whole Foods, and that confidence score is the unique intent signal, taxonomy score that we put on her to say she is likely to receive a message about a bulk buying discount from Campbell's. She's likely to be upsold to the Plum Baby Organics products, given her interest in healthy foods at Whole Foods and the fact that she has a child in the household of less than 4. And that is a way that Campbell's took just a subscriber at a very low cost, enriched the value of that opt-in to something much more longitudinal in terms of how that individual can contribute to their business. And the delivery of it really helped Campbell's keep pace with her needs. And we've talked a lot about how AI and connected consumers are just it's hard to keep up, but this was a way that we could, take inspiration from a recipe to actual recommendations on how she approaches her mealtime weekly planning, how she can fill her pantry in terms of an Instacart recommendation based on that weekly meal planning solution, and then give her a mobile push app and surprise and delight her when she's perhaps on the way home from the office to pick up that bulk Campbell's purchase with a special trial offer as a surprise and delight. And this is really kind of where we at Zeta differentiate. We try to pull away the silos associated with some of the customer lifecycle friction points so that your consumers are really having that fluid experience of one across channels. Our foundation is with the ESP, but we use that data and that AI processing power to really distill what the next best action and next relevant connection the brand can have with the consumer, be it in a DMP environment or with website personalization. So the outcomes, I think it's also really helpful just to highlight some of the wins from this example. Using the data cloud, we brought down the average subscriber of Campbell's highly engaged audience within their newsletter by 7 years. So really addressing the new generation of consumers and the expectation of how they wanted to be communicated with. And that gave us a 36% lift in their acquisition goals, gave a lift in total activity of engaged subscribers on their total file. And then what's really more important is that this level of personalization at scale allowed the consumer to come back to the site and purchase. So we saw, in fact, that our subscribers were of high quality. They came back to the site, they redeemed, and they purchased the Campbell's product. So in closing, looking at these pillars of data, how we address personalization, how we deliver them in an omni-channel sense beyond the inbox, and how we optimize using AI as a tool to get through all the noise. It allows you to really push the value of what you're doing to use the first-party data asset throughout your full ecosystem, so that you can use the AI to deliver next best action, sequenced by customer value, and really get that deterministic one-to-one level attribution that you may be missing. Thank you. James?
Cynthia. So to close, and to bring it back to the opening remarks that I made, harnessing the power of AI and those high-fidelity signals at every step in the life cycle can really increase the effectiveness of everything that we're doing from an email channel perspective, and then, of course, those complementary channels as well, and really help you to deliver on those customer expectations, wants, and needs. From a data perspective, it's important to connect both the traditional and new sources of data, so when we're talking about first and third-party sources of data, to create a richer understanding of the customer. From a decisioning perspective, leveraging AI to make sense of the fire hose of data, to identify where those opportunities are, to create meaning and create a truly complete view of the customer beyond what's currently known. From a delivery perspective, create the right tech environment to deliver that one-to-one personalization in email and, again, across channels. And while we at Zeta consider ourselves pretty full service from a technology and a data and a services perspective, we definitely play nice, if you will, within existing ecosystems and tech stacks too. So, if there's some of the rich data that's available in the data cloud on the Zeta side, we're happy to fit in within your existing tech stack. And then from an outcomes perspective, how do we get better with a clear view to analyze and optimize in new ways within that new AI-enabled one-to-one paradigm? And a closing thought and a little bit of a freebie, if I may. Cynthia's done a good job of describing the Zeta Data Cloud, but it's relatively new. There are some other folks that do it, but we'd be happy to answer any questions on that and talk a bit more about the scale of it and the types of data, the types of things that it can do. We'll be certainly hanging around after this presentation. And one of the things we'd like to offer that we typically do is provide what we call a Data Cloud Insight Report, which is where we would take a sample of your data and show you exactly what we can tell you about your customers within the data cloud. So the types of sites that they're browsing, the types of things that they're particularly interested in, and how we might be able to create new opportunities to reactivate folks or recommend the next best product, that kind of thing. So if you're interested in speaking a little bit more about that, please find myself or Cynthia or Mike Esposito sitting at the back there, a gentleman with a fine head of hair and the pink shirt, hand up in the air. And thank you very much, folks. It's been a great conference, really great to spend some time with you and to meet you all, and safe travels.